For this activity, we're going to discuss conflict. It revolves mostly around Freudian theories, so anybody that's done the research for the mind maps may already know some of this. What is conflict? Of course, we all know what conflict is. We struggle with it day in and day out. It may be a decision you need to make, or it could be physical. So how do we make that decision? What causes us to think that way or act that way? According to Sigmund Freud, we had three areas. The initial area, or the first that we're going to talk about, is the id. Now you can read more about this in the slide, but the id is basically subconscious, and it's the desires and the animalistic tendencies that we suppress. Why do we suppress them? Well, they're unconscious, so we don't really know about them, and a lot of it has to do with society's rules and regulations. I'm scared to do that, or I don't want to do that because it is wrong. Superego, as you can see here, there's a referee. It's a counterpoint to the id's desires. If you think about the devil and the angel, the superego is the angel, right? It's a little voice telling you what you should do. Don't do that. Try not to do that. This is very important here. The superego learns from the environment it is in. Strong support for enculturation and nurture arguments. So remember, enculturation is the effect that culture has on us and our growth and who we become. And nurture is the care you get from others around you. The ego is a mediator. That's you. The ego gradually learns that you can't always get what you want. So sometimes you have to suppress the id. And as it says here, the ego learns delayed gratification. This is an important skill for personal and interpersonal interactions. Sometimes you have to withhold saying something to somebody or acting a certain way until the time is right. Now these three kind of conflict back and forth. And they not only conflict back and forth within you, but within the society, understanding your role and what to do. Remember the iceberg at the beginning of this slide. Your consciousness is really only a small part of your entire mind. So us knowing what we're doing is a very small part. And like the iceberg, the movement, the real movement and control occurs from the unseen portion, the bottom. So stuff that we don't even know that we're doing. So we're going to move on. I want you to watch this video. Again, it kind of explains superego, ego, and id. Have a look at these defense mechanisms. Sigmund Freud came up with these, and his daughter, these are something that we use to help cope with the conflicts that we have day in and day out. You may recognize some of these words. If you don't, it's up to you to research into them. And then innie or outie. This is basically an introvert or an extrovert. A lot of you have written about your personality and who you are. I want to go down to this paragraph here. It is important to remember that no one is completely introverted or completely extroverted. Although you may favor one, you have elements of both within you. One such way of measuring introversion and extroversion, as well as others, is through the Myers-Briggs type indicator test. You can find this down here. It's kind of a fun experiment. It's like those tests that you see on Facebook or social media that says test your IQ, or what 80s movies do you know. And then we're going to move down to Erik Erikson. Freud wasn't the only psychologist who explored internal conflict, nor was his theory the only accepted one. Erikson devised his theory of psychosocial development, whereby individuals progress through life stages within which there is a conflict. So what he meant was through each of these stages in your life, you will run into these conflicts. And it is important that you overcome them and move on from them in his mind and in his theory to move on to the next one. So read over these because you will need to know these for the assignment for this activity. Now I'm going to go to the assignment. It's a two-parter, we'll say. Again, you submit it to the discussion, and I will want people to comment on each other's. So you're going to create and post a scenario that uses any three defense mechanisms. Review the resources for some exemplars. For example, spelling mistake, a tragic event happens and repress the memory, project anger, and perhaps deny that you are angry. So I'm going to ask that you come up with your own, maybe something that you've experienced. So we have repression, projection, and denial. If you go back to content, it is, in this example, we have projection, I believe repression and denial. Okay, so any scenario, could be when I was a kid, I stole something from a convenience store, and then you'd come up with the three different defense mechanisms. After that, part two, you have learned about internal conflict, research, and take notes on what each of the 10 defense mechanisms are. I've already asked you to do that. And then I want you to discuss this. Do you believe defense mechanisms are as Freud described them? Why or why not? And what are defense mechanisms? Benefits and dangers. So for number one, do you believe that repression causes what Freud would think that it causes? Does it manifest itself into other things in your life? And are these valuable? Do we still use them today? And if so, when? Some people may think that defense mechanisms are very, very, very important for our survival. And of course, a lot of Freud's theories, you may come across other social scientists who say that a lot of his theories are outdated and are not as valid. But as social scientists, we're going to discover that ourselves. Good luck.